Welcome into Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Today we are here to show you how to use these great simple clasp jigs to make your own clasps at home. You use a little bit of wire and this artistic wire jig. It doesn't take a lot of skill set. You'll see how quick and easy it is. Like, share, and subscribe, and sign up for our email newsletter. Link in the description below. We'll start with this hook and eye clasp. So it makes a very simple hook and eye, as you can see, and there's two parts to the jig, one part for the hook and one part for the eye. So let's go ahead and start with the hook. I've made these original ones in copper, but let's use some of this fun zebra wire in purple for a change. So this is 20 gauge wire. These do work with 20 gauge wire. So we're going to cut off a couple of lengths of wire, one for the hook and one for the eye. So for the hook, I want about 5 inches. I might cut just a little extra. And for the eye, we want about 4 inches. Now, if your wire is a little bumpy or bendy, you can straighten that out using your nylon jaw pliers like this, or the wire straightener like that. Okay, so let me cut that one off. And then for this particular one, to make the hook, you need just a little piece of scrap wire or a little piece of wire off the same roll. Whatever you have lying around will work, just a couple of inches. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in making the hook here is grab our 5-inch piece of wire. And we're just going to bend that in half. So you kind of want to find the center and just bend it in half. You're going to leave just a little bit. You don't want it to come completely on itself, but you want it to get close. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and squish it a little bit. It's okay if the wires cross right now. See how they're crossing in my hand? We just want to leave a little opening at the end because we're going to put our scrap wire through there. That's the tip of the hook. So we have them pretty close together, pretty parallel, like that. It's okay if one is a little off. I cut some extra wire. And then you're going to take your little 2-inch wire and you're going to thread that through the end of the hook, just like that. Then you're going to take this and you're going to put it through the 2 little pegs below the large peg on the bottom part of the jig. So it's kind of segregated. Here's the top half, here's the bottom half. We're working on this half right now. So it goes through these 2 little pegs right below the large peg, and you're using this wire as an anchor to keep it right in place. So what I like to do is kind of turn the jig at this point, and I'm going to use lots of pressure, and I want to keep these wires as parallel as I can. And I'm going to put them between the large peg and the first small peg. And once you have them kind of there, there's a little pusher tool. It looks like a little piece of pipe. And you put that over the little peg and then kind of push that down. And then the wires just form around the large peg and down and around the bottom small peg. You want to kind of keep them together. And then I will turn the jig because I feel like it's easier to do. At this point, you can just take the scrap wire out. That's no longer needed. That was just to keep it there originally. And you bring these 2 wires around the small peg like that. Then you just take your little pusher tool and you put it over all those small pegs and just push all the wire down. So it's nice and on plane, like that. Push down all of the wire over those little pegs, like that. And then it's nice and on plane. Then you just pull that off of there. And take your wire cutter and snip the tails off. So now you have your little hook. And now I like to take my round nose pliers and just put it through that little loop and make sure that the loops are also kind of on plane and closed up like that. So you have this great little hook. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is make the eye piece using the top 2 pegs in the jig right here. To do that, we'll take the 4-inch wire and I'm going to center it on the top of the jig just like this, and I'll just hold one side down. And then the other side, I'm going to bring between the 2 pegs and over to the other side just like that. Then I will clamp this bottom tail down that I just moved and move the other tail between the 2 pegs and bring it over to this side like that. And it's okay if this gets a little bent down here. We're going to cut that off anyway. Next, I'm going to take one of the tails and I'm going to bring it around the little peg and back through both pegs again. Once I've done that, I can take my pusher tool and bring it right over the small peg and push down really well so it's all on plane. Once I've done that, I'll take it off the jig and I've got my little figure 8, and all we need to do is wrap each tail once around, snip it off, and we're finished with that eye. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and clamp one of the loops. We'll start with the big one here. And if you clamp that really nice and tight while you're wrapping, you won't distort your loop. That's pretty important. Okay, so I'm going to go once all the way around. And I'm going to snip off that tail. And then once you snip off a tail, always tuck it in. Okay. Now, this small loop, it's getting a little bit small, so I'm going to take my round nose plier and open that up a little bit. I want to make sure it's big enough to put whatever I want to put through it later. Okay. That looks really good. And then I'm going to go ahead and clamp the little loop. And I'm going to wrap once around right next to the wrap I made from the other loop. And when I get all the way around, I'm going to snip off that tail. Okay, we'll tuck that little tail in. And you can use a couple of pairs of pliers to make sure both loops are kind of on the same plane and nice and straight. That looks great. And then with your hook, you can use some round nose pliers inside the hook and some bent chain nose or chain nose pliers to kind of move that around too, if you'd like to change the orientation a bit. And there you have your hook and eye made with the artistic wire jig. Let's go ahead and look at the toggle jig now. So the toggle jig has 2 pieces as well. We have the toggle here up at the top and a loop at the bottom with these great little wrap details. Let's start by making the toggle piece. So to make the toggle piece, you're going to use 7 inches of wire. I originally used this gold pair of wire in 20 gauge. This time I think I'm going to have some fun and use this beautiful zebra wire in the turquoise blue color. We'll need 7 inches of this for each section, so I'm going to cut both now. And I'll straighten the wire a little bit. I'll use my nylon jaw plier. I want it nice and smooth for this. So we'll cut that there. And we'll straighten another one. Maybe I'll use the wire straightener on this one. It's a little more bent. Okay, we're going to take our wire 7 inches, and center it below the large bottom peg on the toggle part of the jig. There are 2 small pegs right above it. We're going to go around the large bottom peg and up through the 2 small pegs. Just like that. Now we're going to take the wire to the left through the 2 small pegs on the left. So the wire is through the 2 small pegs on the left. Then there's a large peg all the way out to the left. We're going to go back around that and back through the 2 small pegs on the left that we just went through. Then, once we've done that, we're going to come to the right of the 2 small pegs that are just above the bottom large peg. It's a little bit tricky, just take your time. There we go. So, not so hard. All right, and then you're going to take your pusher tool and push down on all of the small pegs. Doesn't go around the large ones. Okay, we'll go ahead and leave this tail here. Now we're going to mirror what we did on the other side, on this side. So we'll come around that large peg through the 2 middle small pegs, just like that. I might use my pusher tool now to just push that down. Then I'm going to bring the wire to the right through the 2 small pegs that are on the right, around the outside large peg and back through those 2 small pegs on the right. And I might use my pusher tool now. Some people use it just at the end. I like to keep it neat while I'm working. And now we'll take our tail and go around the left side of those 2 small center pegs. Just like that. So it looks like a little bow at this point. And I'm just going to push all of it down and make sure everything is on plane. Okay, so I have pushed down on all of my small pegs at this point. I'm going to go ahead and take this off the jig. And we are finished with the jig for the toggle portion. Now all that's left to do is take these tails and wrap them on either side to create these decorative wraps that give it stability. So I'm just going to clamp the left side and start wrapping the right side. You want the wraps next to each other. See how I'm just doing it even with my fingers. You can take a pair of pliers and wrap that if you like, and just go out as far as you want to go. I feel pretty good there. So I'm going to go ahead and snip this tail off at that last wrap. Okay, one side is wrapped. Then I'm going to flip it around, clamp the other side really well, and start wrapping the other side. Some point I might want to grab some pliers when it gets a little harder to do. And you want about the same amount of wraps on either side. So I am going to finish with one more. And I'll just snip that tail off. And then I'll make sure I'm tucking in my tails. And then you can use your pliers to make sure all the loops are on the right plane and neat and tidy. And there you have your toggle. Now you can see that this loop got a little off round, so just put your round nose pliers in there, one barrel, and just kind of twist it down the barrel, kind of pushing it down the barrel of the plier to round it back out. Okay, I feel really good about that. Let's go ahead and make the loop portion of the clasp. So to make this portion, there's a little hole in the jig you can see off to the left here. We're actually going to put the wire through that hole and kind of anchor it on the other side. You can bend it up if you want to. I like to just kind of hold the jig at this point like that. So now we're just going to take the wire and we're going to bend it around this top part. Now, a secret here to this, I like my loop to be just a little bit larger to make it easier for the toggle to come in and out of it. So I'll actually loosen it up here before I bring it around. So I'll have an extra millimeter or space around this portion. I find that to be pretty important in having a really successful toggle clasp with this. Once I have that loop around, I'm going to go around the small peg all the way around and let my tail come off to the right hand side. Just like that. And then I'll pull it out of the jig and straighten the other tail. Now that you have your formed piece, we're ready to wrap the tails. I've cut a little bit off this tail to make it easier to wrap. We'll also cut a little bit off the other tail. You really only need about 1.5 inches or so on either side, like that. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is take some pliers and clamp the loop that the tail is coming off of. So the right hand tail is going to wrap around this side of the loop at the base. The left hand tail will wrap around this side. Since the right hand tail is coming from the small loop, let's clamp the small loop and we'll wrap that side. Okay, so I'm going to take it and I'm going to thread it through the loop. And I'm going to just take my time with this because I want my wraps to be nice and tight. And I'm just going to wrap once nice and tight around the frame and take it off and see where I am. I'm feeling pretty good about that. If something gets a little off round, you can fix it later. It's okay. All right. And then I'm just going to continue wrapping. So we'll come through that loop again and just go as many times as you feel comfortable with. At least 2. I'll probably go about 4 times, I think, on this one. So there's 2, and we're bringing it through. At some point, you might just want to get a pair of pliers to wrap with. There's 3 wraps and 1 more through that loop. And 4 wraps. And I'll snip it off at the back there. Snip it off away from your face. Okay. And we'll just tuck in that tail. And then we just need to wrap the other side. So now the other side is secured by these wraps that you just did. So I'm just going to hold it and wrap it the first time. Bring it through, and then I'll use some pliers to finish this one off. So we've got 1 wrap through the loop, and you want to keep them together as much as you can, nice and tight. And sometimes I'll stop after a wrap if it looks a little loose and snug it in with my chain nose or bent nose pliers like this. And then through 1 more time. And 1 more wrap, and I'm going to snip it off on the back. Now this is pointed toward my face, so I'll put my finger over that. And then we'll just tuck in the tail. And now you can see it's a little wonky. That's okay. It's so easy to fix. When you're working with a jig, it's always like this. You always have to kind of move things around at the end. And if my circle got a little off round, I'll gently take my round nose pliers and just kind of push around and get it back to the shape that I want. You can even do that with your fingers like that. And here are both of your beautiful clasps using the artistic wired jigs. I really hope that this has helped you and that you go on to make some of these yourself and use them in your jewelry for your own creative projects. For more wonderful tools like this, make sure and check out the tool section at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Like, share, and subscribe, and sign up for our email newsletter. Link in the description below.